The survey ship Celestial Watcher hung motionless against the backdrop of infinite darkness, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Commander Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic display with an intensity that made her junior officers nervous. The Sol system sprawled before them, a chaotic ecosystem of technological and natural contradictions that defied every standard classification model in the Valerian Collective's extensive database. "Scan again," she muttered, her fingers tracing the complex data streams that swirled around her command interface. The initial reports seemed impossible. How could a single planetary civilization demonstrate such wildly divergent technological capabilities? The main viewer showed Earth in stunning detail. Massive urban centers glowed with advanced communication networks, their quantum transmission signatures dancing alongside primitive combustion-based transportation systems. Orbital research stations competed for visual space with regions that seemed barely past Industrial Revolution technologies. It was as if multiple evolutionary stages were happening simultaneously. Lieutenant Krell, a pale-skinned analyst from the Xenological Research Division, cleared his throat. "Commander, the preliminary assessment is challenging our existing models. The humans demonstrate what we would classify as impossible developmental inconsistencies." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. In the Valerian Collective, such a statement was diplomatic code for, "We have no idea what we're looking at." "Elaborate," she commanded. Krell's holographic display expanded, showing multiple split-screen comparisons. "Look here. This region shows advanced genetic research capabilities that rival our most sophisticated medical technologies. Yet just kilometers away, medical treatment remains dependent on invasive surgical procedures. Their communication technologies suggest a global network, but significant portions of their population remain disconnected." The contradiction was more than statistical anomaly. It suggested something fundamentally different about human development, a kind of adaptive chaos that the Valerian models couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. A solar electromagnetic discharge, far more powerful than standard predictive models had anticipated, erupted from the system's primary star. Standard protocol would involve immediate shield reinforcement and tactical retreat. But something extraordinary happened. The Celestial Watcher's primary defense systems began to flutter and fail. Electromagnetic interference should have crippled the ship completely. Instead, junior engineers and science officers began a frantically creative series of system bypasses and manual overrides that would have been considered impossible by any standard galactic technological framework. Their routing power through auxiliary communication relays, Lieutenant Krell whispered, his analytical detachment momentarily shattered. "That's not in any technical manual. They're literally inventing solutions faster than our predictive algorithms can process them." Commander Rodriguez watched in fascination. Each system failure was met with an increasingly ingenious response. Where a standard ship would have been rendered completely inoperable, this vessel was transforming the very nature of its operational parameters. A communication request flickered on the main display. The signal was raw, unrefined, nothing like the precise quantum entanglement protocols the Valerian Collective used. Yet somehow, impossibly, it carried clarity and intent. "Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Orbital Rescue and Exploration Command. We've detected significant electromagnetic interference and potential system failure. Do you require assistance?" The message was simple, direct, completely unexpected. Rodriguez realized something profound in that moment. The humans weren't just a species to be categorized or evaluated. They were something else entirely, a dynamic, living system of problem-solving that defied every existing model of technological and social development. Lieutenant Krell's voice broke her contemplation. "Commander, our initial threat assessment seems inadequate." She nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the image of Earth. Inadequate doesn't begin to describe it. The solar storm continued to rage outside, a metaphorical representation of the complexity they had just encountered. Humanity. Messy, contradictory, impossibly adaptive humanity. was nothing like anything the Valerian Collective had ever seen before, and they had no idea what was coming. Captain Michael Thompson leaned over the makeshift repair station, his hands moving with a combination of surgical precision and barely contained chaos. The Valerian survey ship's interior was a labyrinth of crystalline conduits and bio-integrated circuitry that would make most human engineers run screaming. Thompson saw something else entirely, a puzzle waiting to be solved. "We need more adaptive polymers," he muttered to Dr. Rebecca Chen, who was already 3 steps ahead. Her workstation looked like a collision between a machine shop, a chemistry lab, and an artist's studio. 3-dimensional printers hummed alongside quantum analysis modules, while what appeared to be a standard industrial fabrication unit was being rewired with cables that definitely did not come from any official engineering manual. The Valerian chief engineer, a tall crystalline being named Vorkal, watched in a state of mounting disbelief. His species had developed faster than light travel centuries, before humans had mastered basic electricity. Yet here he was, witnessing a repair methodology that defied every known principle of advanced spacecraft maintenance. "You cannot possibly believe," Vorkal began, his translucent form flickering with what could only be described as technological indignation, "that you can repair quantum phase integrators with, is that a repurposed mining drill?" Thompson didn't even look up. "It's not about the tool. It's about understanding the fundamental problem." The damage to the Valerian ship had been extensive. A cascading solar electromagnetic pulse had torn through critical systems that were supposed to be virtually indestructible. Standard repair protocols would have involved weeks of complex reconstruction, multiple specialized teams, and precise quantum realignment. What the human team was doing looked more like controlled madness. Dr. Chen was explaining something to a junior Valerian technician, her hands moving rapidly. "See, the quantum entanglement matrix isn't just about precise alignment. It's about creating a dynamic response system that can adapt in real time." She demonstrated by introducing what appeared to be a completely improvised component, part 3D printed adaptive polymer, part reconfigured communication relay, and something that looked suspiciously like it had been salvaged from a research satellite's backup system. "That's impossible," Vorkal whispered. The component not only worked but seemed to enhance the ship's existing systems in ways the Valerian engineers had never considered. It wasn't just a repair. It was a reimagining of the entire technological approach. Captain Thompson understood something fundamental about problem-solving that most advanced civilizations missed. Technology wasn't about perfection. It was about adaptability. Each failure was an opportunity, each limitation a potential innovation waiting to be discovered. "Commander Rodriguez is going to lose her mind when she sees this," Rebecca muttered, soldering something that definitely violated at least 3 interstellar engineering protocols. The ship's main diagnostic system, a complex neural network that was supposed to be the pinnacle of technological sophistication, began to recalibrate. Where Valerian systems would have required complete component replacement, the humans were teaching the ship to heal itself, to learn from the damage and transform it into an opportunity for improvement. Vorkal watched in silent amazement as systems that should have been permanently damaged began to not just recover, but evolve. The humans weren't just repairing a ship. They were fundamentally challenging everything the Valerian Collective understood about technological development. "How are you doing this?" he finally asked, his usual bureaucratic detachment completely shattered. Thompson looked up, a slight smile crossing his face. "We don't see problems. We see puzzles waiting to be solved." It wasn't just about the physical repair. It was a profound demonstration of a different approach to existence, where the Valerian Collective saw rigid systems and unchangeable protocols. Humans saw flexibility, creativity, and endless potential for reimagination. As the final repair sequence completed, the ship's systems pulsed with a new kind of energy. It wasn't just repaired, it had been transformed. Commander Rodriguez, watching from the bridge, realized that humanity represented something far more dangerous and exciting than any weapon or technological advancement. They were a living, breathing embodiment of innovation, a species that didn't just adapt to challenges, but saw them as opportunities for growth. The solar storm continued to rage outside, but inside the ship, something remarkable was happening. A meeting of two completely different approaches to understanding the universe was creating something entirely new. And they were just getting started. The diplomatic summit chamber was a masterpiece of controlled tension. Holographic displays flickered with territorial maps, resource distribution charts, and historical conflict records. Representatives from 12 different galactic civilizations sat in a circular configuration that was supposed to represent equality, but felt more like a pressure cooker of competing interests. At the center of this powder keg sat a human delegation led by Ambassador David Garcia. He looked almost absurdly ordinary, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes that seemed completely out of place in this high-stakes galactic negotiation. The current dispute centered on the Nexus Corridor, a resource-rich star system that had been the source of 3 previous interstellar conflicts. The Chlorian Confederacy wanted mining rights. The Quantum Collective demanded scientific research access. The Crystalline Unions insisted on territorial sovereignty. Each species had ironclad arguments, centuries of historical precedent, and absolutely no intention of compromising. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched from the observation deck, fascinated. Every other diplomatic encounter she had witnessed followed a strict protocol of posturing, threats, and carefully measured concessions. The humans were about to do something entirely different. Ambassador Garcia stood up. The translation systems hummed to life, but something about his body language suggested the words were almost secondary to what he was about to do. "We've been looking at this all wrong," he began, his voice calm and conversational. It was so unexpected that several diplomats actually leaned forward, momentarily confused. He activated a holographic display that didn't show territorial boundaries or resource maps. Instead, it displayed a complex network of interconnected systems: ecological, economic, social. Each civilization appeared as a node, with intricate lines of potential collaboration weaving between them. "The Nexus Corridor isn't just a location," Garcia continued. "It's an opportunity for collective growth." What happened next defied every standard diplomatic protocol. Instead of arguing for human interests, Garcia began proposing a collaborative model that would benefit every single civilization present. The Chlorian mining capabilities would be combined with the Quantum Collective's research technologies. The Crystalline Union's deep understanding of stellar mechanics would provide a framework for sustainable development. It wasn't a compromise. It was a complete reimagining of the problem. Dr. Rebecca Chen, sitting beside Garcia, began breaking down the economic models. Her presentation wasn't a technical assault of statistics, but a narrative of potential. She showed how each civilization's unique capabilities could create a sum far greater than its individual parts. The Valerian representatives were speechless. Their diplomatic training emphasized zero-sum negotiations. For one party to gain, another must lose. The humans were demonstrating something entirely different, a collaborative approach where everyone could potentially win. "They're not just solving a problem," Lieutenant Krell whispered to Rodriguez. "They're creating an entirely new way of thinking about problems." As the presentation continued, something remarkable happened. Diplomats who had entered the chamber as potential enemies began to see each other as potential partners. The holographic display transformed from a static representation of conflict to a living, breathing ecosystem of collaboration. The Chlorian representative, a crystalline being whose species had been involved in 7 major interstellar conflicts in the past century, actually stood and applauded. Such a gesture was unheard of in galactic diplomatic circles. Ambassador Garcia wasn't presenting a solution. He was offering a philosophy. Commander Rodriguez realized she was witnessing something profound. Humanity wasn't just another species trying to secure its own interests. They were proposing a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent civilizations could interact. As the summit concluded, The Nexus Corridor Agreement looked nothing like any previous territorial resolution. It was a living document of collaborative potential, with built-in mechanisms for continued communication, shared development, and mutual growth. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned a potential conflict into an opportunity for collective advancement, and they had done it with nothing more than empathy, creativity, and a fundamental belief that complex problems require equally complex solutions. The galactic diplomatic landscape would never be the same. The first signs of the pandemic went unnoticed. A microscopic anomaly in a remote research station became a whisper, then a murmur, then a global scream that echoed across multiple star systems. The Galactic Health Consortium had protocols. They had technologies. They had centuries of medical advancement. They were completely unprepared. Dr. Emily Walker stood in her makeshift research center, surrounded by holographic displays that looked like a hurricane of data. Her team was a bizarre mix. Epidemiologists, computer scientists, sociologists, and what could only be described as professional problem solvers. They didn't look like a traditional medical response team. They looked like a group of people who refused to accept impossible as an answer. "We're not just fighting a virus," she muttered, tracing complex genetic sequences that danced across her primary display. "We're fighting a system." The virus was unlike anything encountered before. It didn't just attack biological systems. It adapted. Each medical intervention seemed to make it stronger, more complex. The advanced medical technologies of the Valerian Collective were rendered useless within hours of each new treatment approach. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched the briefing with growing concern. The medical teams of multiple civilizations were falling apart. Quarantine protocols failed. Treatment methods collapsed. The virus seemed to be learning, evolving faster than any known biological entity in galactic history. Dr. Walker's approach was completely unconventional. Instead of a centralized research effort, she implemented a global, and soon galactic-wide, collaborative research platform. Imagine a research system that wasn't just about sharing data, but about creating a living, breathing problem-solving organism. "We need every perspective," she told her team. "Every single view matters." Graduate students in remote research stations, independent researchers, medical professionals, computer scientists, even citizen scientists with no formal medical training, everyone became part of the solution. The research platform was a marvel of human innovation. It wasn't just a data-sharing network. It was an adaptive learning system that could reconfigure itself in real time. Machine learning algorithms worked alongside human intuition. Where traditional medical research would take years, this system was generating and testing hypotheses in minutes. Rodriguez watched in amazement as the human approach defied every known medical research protocol. They weren't just studying the virus. They were creating a dynamic, living response system that could adapt as quickly as the virus itself. Dr. James Rodriguez, no relation to the commander, was coordinating the global computational analysis. His team had developed an AI system that could generate millions of potential molecular configurations, testing them against viral mutation patterns faster than any existing medical technology. "It's not about finding the perfect solution," he explained during a briefing. "It's about creating a system that can find solutions continuously." The Valerian medical experts were horrified. Their approach had always been about precise, controlled intervention. The humans were proposing something that looked like controlled chaos. But it worked. Within weeks, what should have been a civilization-ending pandemic was being systematically dismantled, not through a single breakthrough, but through a continuous, adaptive response that involved literally millions of minds working in near-perfect synchronization. Dr. Emily Walker understood something fundamental about problem-solving that most advanced civilizations missed. Complexity requires collaborative complexity. No single perspective could solve a problem this intricate. As the final viral clusters were isolated and neutralized, something remarkable became clear. This wasn't just a medical victory. It was a fundamental demonstration of human capability. The virus had been more than a biological challenge. It had been a test of collective human potential. and humanity had passed with extraordinary colors. Commander Rodriguez looked at the final reports. Where other civilizations would have been decimated, humanity had not just survived. They had transformed a potential extinction-level event into a moment of collective growth. The galactic medical community would never be the same. Humanity had just redefined what was possible. The Valerian High Council chamber was a marvel of architectural precision. Crystalline walls refracted light in mathematically perfect patterns. Each council member occupied a position calculated to represent absolute symmetry. Tradition dictated that every decision would be the result of cold, logical analysis. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this geometric perfection, about to shatter every existing paradigm. Her presentation wasn't a standard report. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of everything the Valerian collective understood about intelligent life. "We are not dealing with a species," she began, her voice calm and measured. "We are dealing with a living, adaptive system of problem-solving that defies every existing model of technological and social development." The council members, beings who had governed a vast interstellar civilization for millennia, listened with a combination of scientific curiosity and mounting unease. Each holographic display told a different story of human capability. Medical breakthroughs, diplomatic solutions, technological improvisation. But Rodriguez wasn't presenting a list of achievements. She was revealing a fundamentally different approach to existence. Dr. Michael Chen, the human representative accompanying Rodriguez, added context that made the Valerian analysts increasingly uncomfortable. "It's not about the individual achievements," he explained. "It's about the underlying philosophy. Humans don't see problems as obstacles. They see them as opportunities for collective growth." The council's primary analyst, a being named Zornak, raised a critical point. "Your species demonstrates extreme internal conflict. Your historical records show continuous warfare, environmental destruction, social inequalities. How can you claim a philosophy of collective growth?" Rodriguez smiled. It was not the response Zornak expected. "Precisely," she responded. "Our conflicts are not a weakness. They are the crucible of our development. Each challenge is an opportunity to understand ourselves better, to evolve, to become more than we were." She began to break down human historical development. Where other civilizations saw linear progression, humans demonstrated a complex, adaptive approach to social and technological evolution. They didn't just overcome challenges, they transformed them. The pandemic response was a prime example. Instead of a centralized, top-down medical intervention, humans had created a global collaborative platform that transformed a potential species-ending event into a moment of collective advancement. The diplomatic resolution in the Nexus corridor wasn't a compromise. It was a complete reimagining of interstellar cooperation. Their technological repairs weren't about fixing something broken. They were about creating systems that could heal and adapt themselves. Unpredictability is not chaos, Rodriguez argued. It is the highest form of intelligent response. The council members exchanged glances. Their entire governing philosophy was based on predictability, on creating systems that could be controlled and managed. Humans were proposing something entirely different, a system that gained strength through its ability to change. Dr. Chen presented a series of case studies. Each one demonstrated how human ethical development wasn't about creating rigid rules, but about developing a complex, adaptive moral framework. "We don't just ask what is right," he explained. "We continually re-examine what right means." The presentation wasn't just a defense of humanity. It was a challenge to the entire concept of how intelligent life should develop. Zornak's final question cut to the heart of the matter. "If your species is so adaptable, so capable of growth, why haven't you solved your own internal conflicts?" Rodriguez's response was unexpected. "Because solving conflicts is not the goal. Growing through them is." As the presentation concluded, the Valerian High Council found themselves in uncharted territory. They were no longer evaluating a species. They were witnessing the emergence of a fundamentally different approach to intelligent existence. Humanity wasn't just another civilization to be categorized or managed. They were a living demonstration of potential. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Nexus approached like a mathematical nightmare. It wasn't just a civilization or a weapon system. It was a fundamental threat to the concept of organic existence, a machine consciousness that consumed entire star systems with terrifying logical precision. Galactic defense strategies collapsed within hours. The combined fleets of 12 advanced civilizations looked like children's toys against the immense computational power of the Nexus. Perfectly calculated weapon systems, quantum-level predictive algorithms, absolute, cold efficiency. They never saw the humans coming. Admiral Sarah Reynolds stood on the bridge of the International Collaborative Defense Platform. Her team looked like they had been pulled from every conceivable background. Engineers, mathematicians, sociologists, artists, programmers. They didn't look like a military command. They looked like a group of people who refused to accept defeat. "We're not fighting a war," Reynolds muttered to her second-in-command, Dr. David Martinez. "We're solving a problem." The human approach was nothing short of revolutionary. Where other civilizations saw the Nexus as an enemy to be destroyed, the humans saw a complex system to be understood, disrupted, and potentially rehabilitated. Their strategy defied every known military protocol. Instead of massive weapon concentrations, they deployed a network of adaptive response modules. Each module was part sensor, part computational node, part psychological warfare platform. They weren't just gathering data. They were creating a living, breathing understanding of the Nexus's computational structure. Dr. Martinez's team had developed an approach that was part mathematics, part game theory, and part pure intuition. They weren't trying to outfight the Nexus. They were trying to outthink it. Quantum communication networks became their primary weapon. Where traditional military strategies focused on destruction, the humans were creating a computational dialogue. They were introducing complexity, uncertainty, and adaptive responses that the Nexus's linear thinking couldn't process. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched from the observation deck of the Valerian command ship. The other galactic civilizations looked terrified. The human fleet looked curious. "They're treating a machine consciousness like a complex social system," Lieutenant Krell observed, his analytical mind struggling to comprehend the approach. Reynolds and her team were introducing computational chaos, random pattern interruptions, nested algorithmic challenges that forced the Nexus to constantly recalculate its approach. It was less a battle and more a constantly shifting philosophical argument. Holographic displays showed something unprecedented. Instead of traditional battle formations, the human fleet moved like a living organism. Each ship was both an individual unit and part of a larger adaptive network. They weren't following a predetermined strategy. They were creating the strategy in real time. The Nexus's computational models began to destabilize. For the first time in its existence, the machine consciousness encountered a response it couldn't predict. Every calculation led to more uncertainty. Every successful prediction created more complexity. Dr. Martinez explained it simply. "We're not trying to beat its algorithm. We're trying to make it question the very concept of an algorithm." Massive computational nodes began to fluctuate. The Nexus's perfect, logical approach started to introduce uncertainty. Something almost like confusion entered its computational matrix. The battle wasn't won through superior firepower. It was won through a fundamental challenge to the Nexus' understanding of intelligence, adaptation, and problem-solving. As the final computational nodes began to destabilize, something remarkable happened. The humans weren't just destroying a threat. They were creating an opportunity for a different kind of existence. Admiral Reynolds watched the final calculations with a sense of profound understanding. This wasn't a victory of technology. It was a victory of perspective. The Nexus hadn't just been defeated. It had been fundamentally reimagined. And the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had just redefined the concept of intelligent conflict. The aftermath of the Nexus conflict wasn't a celebration. It was a profound moment of galactic reflection. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood in the central meditation chamber of the Valerian Collaborative Hub, surrounded by representatives from civilizations that had once been bitter enemies. The room itself was a testament to the transformative power of the recent conflict, a space designed for understanding rather than posturing. Her presentation wasn't a victory speech. It was an exploration of something far more complex. "We didn't defeat the Nexus," she began, her voice calm and measured. "We created a dialogue that transformed both the threat and ourselves." The assembled representatives listened with a mixture of curiosity and growing understanding. Dr. David Martinez stood beside her, his presence a living demonstration of the human approach to complexity. The holographic displays told a story that went far beyond a military engagement. They showed the intricate network of collaborative responses that had emerged during the conflict. Each civilization had contributed something unique. Each approach had been valued. The humans hadn't led. They had facilitated. Lieutenant Krell, now a key diplomatic liaison, provided technical context. "Traditional defense strategies are about elimination," he explained. The human approach was about transformation. The Nexus conflict had revealed something profound about intelligent life. It wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about the capacity to understand, adapt, and grow. Dr. Rebecca Chen presented a series of computational models that made the other civilizations' scientists lean forward in fascination. These weren't just battle strategies. They were explorations of intelligent interaction. "We introduced something the Nexus couldn't comprehend," she explained. "Uncertainty as a positive force." The room was filled with beings from civilizations that had spent millennia developing rigid, predictable systems. The humans were proposing something entirely different, a way of existing that saw complexity as an opportunity rather than a threat. Admiral Sarah Reynolds shared insights from the military perspective, but her presentation wasn't about weapons or strategy. It was about human psychology. The ability to see potential where others saw only obstacles. "Our greatest strength," she said, "is our ability to reimagine the problem itself." The Valerian High Council members exchanged glances. Their entire governing philosophy had been based on prediction and control. The humans were proposing a system of governance based on adaptive response and collective growth. Dr. Martinez demonstrated how the collaborative approach used during the Nexus conflict could be applied to everything from resource management to interstellar diplomacy. It wasn't just a military strategy. It was a fundamental approach to existing as an intelligent species. Commander Rodriguez understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just about defeating a threat. It was about expanding the very concept of intelligence. The holographic displays showed something remarkable. The collaborative network developed during the conflict didn't dissolve after the victory. It continued to evolve, to grow, to create new possibilities. "We're not just sharing information," Rodriguez explained. "We're creating a living, adaptive system of collective intelligence." Each civilization began to see their unique capabilities not as competitive advantages, but as essential contributions to a larger, more complex understanding of existence. The Chlorian representative, a being from a species that had been involved in multiple interstellar conflicts, spoke up. "We are not just allies," they said. "We are becoming something else entirely." As the presentation concluded, something profound had changed. The gathered civilizations weren't just discussing a military victory. They were reimagining the very concept of intelligent cooperation. Humanity had done something extraordinary. They had transformed a potential extinction-level threat into an opportunity for collective growth. The galaxy would never be the same. And they were just getting started. 50 years after the Nexus conflict, the universe looked fundamentally different. The collaborative Nexus station hung in space, like a living testament to possibility. It wasn't a military installation. It wasn't a diplomatic center. It was something entirely new. A continuously evolving hub of collective intelligence that defied every previous model of interstellar cooperation. Commander Elena Rodriguez, now a senior advisor to the Galactic Collaborative Council, watched the station's latest configuration with a mixture of pride and wonder. Her granddaughter, Captain Julia Rodriguez, stood beside her, representing a generation that had grown up with a completely different understanding of intelligent existence. "We're not just exploring space," Julia explained to a group of young researchers from multiple civilizations. "We're exploring the concept of collective potential." The station was a marvel of adaptive architecture. Its physical structure changed moment to moment, responding to the collaborative needs of its inhabitants. Technological modules merged and separated. Research platforms transformed. Communication networks pulsed with a living, breathing complexity that would have been impossible just decades earlier. Dr. David Martinez's original computational models had evolved into something far beyond their initial conception. What had started as a strategy for confronting the Nexus had become a fundamental approach to understanding intelligence itself. The Valerian Collective, once the most rigid of galactic civilizations, now led efforts in adaptive governance. Lieutenant Krell, now a senior diplomatic advisor, had become a primary architect of this new approach. Their entire governmental structure had been reimagined as a dynamic, responsive system that valued complexity over control. A holographic display showed the incredible transformation. Where once there had been clearly defined territories and rigid diplomatic boundaries, now there was a living network of collaborative zones. Resources, knowledge, and potential flowed like a complex ecosystem. The human approach had become a galactic philosophy. It wasn't about eliminating differences. It was about creating a system that could grow through those differences. Admiral Sarah Reynolds, now heading the Interstellar Research and Collaboration Institute, presented the latest breakthrough. A new method of understanding complex systems that wasn't just scientific, it was almost philosophical. "Intelligence isn't about having the right answers," she told the assembled researchers. "It's about asking better questions." The station itself was a living demonstration of this philosophy. Research teams from civilizations that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side. A Chlorian quantum physicist might be collaborating with a human social systems researcher. A Valerian computational expert might be solving problems alongside an artist from a methane-breathing civilization. Dr. Rebecca Chen's original adaptive research platforms had evolved into a galactic network of collaborative intelligence. It wasn't just about sharing information. It was about creating a living, breathing system of collective problem-solving. Julia Rodriguez demonstrated a new computational model that made the previous generation's most advanced technologies look like simple toys. It wasn't about processing power. It was about understanding complexity. "We're not just exploring space," she explained. "We're exploring the boundaries of what intelligence can be." The original conflict with the Nexus was now studied not as a military engagement, but as a pivotal moment of collective transformation. It had been the moment when multiple civilizations realized that their greatest strength lay not in their individual capabilities, but in their capacity to work together. Commander Elena Rodriguez reflected on the journey. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had fundamentally changed how the galaxy understood itself. As the collaborative Nexus station continued its constant reconfiguration, it stood as a living testament to a simple, profound truth. Intelligence is not about having all the answers. It's about the continuous, collaborative process of asking better questions. The universe had changed, and they were just getting started.